Morning all. Police in Texas have admitted that their response to the Uvalde school shooting was wrong. 19 children and 2 of their teachers were killed while officers waited outside the classrooms despite desperate calls from the pupils inside. Now their families are waiting for answers about why it took so long for police to move in. Our US correspondent Greg Niall has been speaking to some of them and sent this report.
As if the grief of losing a child weren't enough, imagine wondering if more could have been done to save her. Vincent Salazar and his family are mourning the loss of 11-year-old Layla, the baby of the family, they called her, who loved TikTok and denim jackets. The families of all those who died now waiting for answers on why it took the police so long to confront the gunman.
We're definitely going to want to know, but right now it's hard to get answers, but as time goes, I'm sure we will. It's a small town. I mean, I don't know too many police forces in a small town like this that would know how to respond to this. I'm hoping that my daughter's death wasn't in vain and her classmates' deaths weren't in vain, and that something does change. I mean, anything's better than nothing.
Timeline of events is critical, and why police delayed before entering that classroom when children in the school were still calling 911 and panicked parents outside pleaded with them to go in. To the clamour for answers, this admission from a senior police chief was striking.
Hey, from the benefit of hindsight, where I'm sitting now, of course it was not the right decision. It was the wrong decision, period. There's no excuse for that. But again, I wasn't there, but I'm just telling you, from what we know, we believe there should have been an entry at that as soon as you can. Hey, when there's an active shooter, the rules change.
He was asked how this tragedy had affected him.
Forget how I'm doing. What about the parents?
Have to do something, man.
For the second time since the tragedy, the governor of Texas was heckled at a news conference for dismissing guns as the problem. The local Democrat senator who did it explained why.
If these people out there in the public push these guys, they need to start calling his office, and they need to start asking for change.
We've also heard from the mother of gunman Salvador Ramos. I have no words, she says. Please don't judge him. To the innocent children who died, forgive me. The investigation into her son has zeroed in on his online life, concerns others had about his guns, and even whether he was planning a school shooting.
Everyone has words.
That's his voice in a chat group on the app Yubo. We spoke to one young woman who he was in contact with, who he sent threatening messages to, who said his behaviour caused alarm.
He was given the nickname Yubo's school shooter, and people would be like, oh, hey, look, it's Yubo's school shooter. And he never tried to shut down that nickname. He seemed almost proud of it, it was just something that really could have been prevented.
Yubo says it's investigating. Whatever the warning signs, they were missed. So too an opportunity for police to act. All of it leaving them wondering here whether it could have made the difference between life and death. Greg Niall, Sky News, Uvalde in Texas.
Just hours away from Uvalde and in the very same state, the powerful US gun lobby, the National Rifle Association, is holding its annual convention. Among the speakers last night, a former president, one Donald Trump, who insisted that stricter gun laws were not the answer. Our US correspondent Mark Stone reports from Houston.
For the gun lobby members arriving at their national convention, there is nothing odd or awkward about the timing of this event, because there is, they believe, no correlation between mass shootings and guns.
Guns don't pick themselves up and kill people. It's people that do that.
He managed to buy a gun.
That's right, legally.
And walk into a school and shoot 19 kids.
The school was negligent. He shouldn't have had the doors open. He walked in an open door.
Do you not think the gun laws should be tightened slightly?
No, what they need to do is enforce the ones they have. They're not doing their job. They're letting those people slip through the cracks. That's the issue.
You don't think the issue is too many guns in America?
No.
There are, of course, nuances. Some do want regulation, better policing, but they all want their guns. Can you give us a sense of why it's important to you?
We're a free country.
Inside, guest of honour Donald Trump read out the names of the children who died.
McKenna Lee Elrod. Maitai.
A mark of respect or deeply distasteful. The former president will divide opinion as always.
Sadly, before the sun had even set on the horrible day of tragedy, we witnessed a now familiar parade of cynical politicians seeking to exploit the tears of sobbing families to increase their own power and take away our constitutional rights.
But in here, they are at one. The problem isn't guns, it's bad people.
If we as a nation were capable of legislating evil out of the hearts and minds of criminals who commit these heinous acts, we would have done it a long time ago.
He wouldn't have seen the anti-gun protests outside, bigger and noisier than even they expected. Among them, just listen to the views of a 17-year-old student who says she is scared in her classroom every day.
Every single person in that building right there is complicit, and they're helping, and something needs to be done.
Why do you think they're complicit?
Because if you're not actively doing something to help the problem, you are part of the problem.
The star guest here is the Democratic candidate for governor, one-time presidential hopeful Beto O'Rourke.
The time for us to stop the next mass shooting in this country is right now, right here, today, with every single one of us.
They really do feel as though they have an energy this time to bring about meaningful change. And however improbable it may seem, they think it could begin in Texas. Why do you think change will happen this time?
We are committed to it, and we are going to act. We are going to break through right now. Everyone here is committed to it.
But against all this optimism is the reality, a divided ideology that feels now to be so entrenched. If nothing changed when the country was less divided, how is it really possible now? Mark Stone, Sky News in Houston.
The pressure continues to pile on the PM in the wake of Sue Gray's report into Downing Street lockdown parties, with another Conservative MP submitting a letter of no confidence in his leadership. Now, according to Sky News count, that takes the number of Tory MPs publicly calling on him to go to 22. Boris Johnson also facing criticism after changes were announced to the ministerial rule book. Now, ministers will no longer face the sack if they are found to have breached it. Sir Bob Neill, who chairs the Justice Select Committee, said he no longer found the Prime Minister's statements to Parliament to be credible.
I didn't regard the explanations as being credible. There was a course of conduct that took place here in number 10 Downing Street, the pattern of behaviour over a number of months, which clearly breached the rules. And we can't have a situation where those who are making the rules are not adhering to them themselves when they expect everybody else to do so.
Boris Johnson is also facing criticism after waving through changes to the ministerial code, meaning that those who breach it will no longer immediately have to resign or face the sack. Our political correspondent Liz Bates has the latest.
Ministerial code in this country is very much central to upholding standards in public life. The Prime Minister is expected to adhere to it and enforce it. And yet, at this moment, on the week the Sue Gray report was released and the behaviour of those at the heart of government has very much been called into question, it's been watered down. Now, the changes will mean that breaking the ministerial code will no longer be considered an automatic resigning matter, and that minor breaches can be dealt with in different ways via a reduction in salary or an apology, for example. And in practice, that is often how the code has been applied. The problem for the Prime Minister is that he is about to be investigated by the Privileges Committee, who will look into whether he misled Parliament over the Downing Street parties. Now, these changes will not directly affect that, but unsurprisingly, opposition MPs have jumped on this today and said that this is him changing the rules ahead of that inquiry, trying to get himself off the hook. The slightly broader problem will be the perception of this by the public, but also by his own MPs, many of whom are still very unhappy about what came out in the Sue Gray report and are still deciding on how they're going to react. And we've heard this week some of those MPs coming out publicly and saying that they no longer have confidence in him and that it's time for him to go. It would take 54 letters of no confidence to trigger a vote of no confidence in the Prime Minister, and there will undoubtedly be concern in Downing Street that if this drip of letters continues, that the Prime Minister could very soon find himself in real trouble.
Liz Bates there. Now, in a blow to half-term travellers, Easyjet is cancelling more than 200 flights over the next 10 days. Sky's Adele Robinson is at Gatwick for us. Good to see you this morning, Adele. So, if we are heading off via Gatwick, via Easyjet, what are the chances?
Well, there's a lot of anger here amongst travellers this morning over the late notice given by Easyjet, with many claiming that no viable solutions have been put forward to save their family holiday. So a huge amount of disappointment, understandably. For many people, this will have been their first opportunity to get away post-pandemic. But it's the latest in a catalogue of chaos that we've seen over the last couple of days, indeed the last few months. Scenes reminiscent of the Easter chaos at airports when a number of airlines cancelled many flights back then. On Thursday, as you say, 200 flights were cancelled by Easyjet due to IT issues. Yesterday, we saw queues of up to 3 hours leading into the port of Dover as travellers tried to get cross channel. Yesterday's announcements, Easyjet cancelling 24 flights a day over the next 10 days is unrelated to the IT issues, which are said to be resolved. Easyjet say that it's down to a range of issues, including air traffic control restrictions, runway works and airport handling delays. They have apologised. In a statement, this is what they've said: "We're very sorry for the late notice of some of these cancellations and inconvenience caused for customers booked onto these flights. However, we believe this is necessary to provide reliable services over this busy period. Customers are being informed from today," which was Friday when they released this statement, "and provided with the option to rebook their flight or receive a refund and can apply for compensation in line with regulations." But not good enough, according to many of their travellers who question why at least some of this could not have been foreseen. It doesn't bode well for the summer months, but it also raises the question over for a travel industry that appears to be struggling to cope with demand post-pandemic.
Adele, thank you. Some of the day's other news now. And a Metropolitan Police officer has been charged with raping a woman on Brighton Beach, while another is being sent for trial accused of 21 counts of rape over 17 years. Sergeant Lawrence Knight was arrested in July last year after a woman reported being raped on the beach 11 days earlier. He will now appear at Brighton and Hove Magistrates Court in June. A second officer attached to Met Detention, which deals with police custody units, has been suspended from duty. The jury in the defamation trial between Johnny Depp and Amber Heard has been sent out to consider its verdict. Heard, who claims that Depp physically and sexually assaulted her, is being sued by the Hollywood actor for $50 million over an article she wrote in the Washington Post, in which she described herself as a public figure representing domestic abuse. She is countersuing her ex-husband for $100 million after his lawyer called her allegations a hoax. The UK Health Security Agency has confirmed that 16 more cases of monkeypox have been identified in England. The latest cases bring the total number confirmed since the 7th of May to 101. There have been 3 confirmed cases in Scotland, 1 in Wales, 1 in Northern Ireland, taking the UK total to 106. A statement from UK HSA said the risk to the UK population remains low. And it looks like millions of people are planning to celebrate the Queen's Platinum Jubilee with their neighbours next week. It's estimated that around 16,000 street parties will be thrown, with councils having approved a huge number of applications from residents across the UK. To the war in Ukraine now, where officials are calling on the West for more to help stop the horrors seen in the city of Mariupol playing out again across the bombarded Donbass region. The governor of Luhansk has warned Ukrainian forces may have to retreat from their last stronghold in the region to avoid being captured. Sky's Alistair Bunkle joins us now from the capital, Kiev. Alistair, good to see you this morning. Explain exactly why what is happening in the east is taking place. Clearly, the Russians have numbers.
They do. They've got the numbers, and it is strategically, geographically, about joining up an area, really. So if you were to look at a map of the eastern Ukraine with Russia sort of to the north and to the northeast of it, Russian forces have spread through the eastern Donbass region, where, of course, let's not forget, since 2014, there have been Russian separatists there anyway. But they have spread through there, and they are joining up various different regions in the Donetsk and Luhansk regions in order to try and create a corridor between there and some of the southern port cities like Mariupol, and then perhaps on to Mykolaiv, which has taken a bit of a pounding this morning. And frankly, the Russians have the momentum down there, and the final cities that were holding out against the Russians, I think probably will fall, if not within days, possibly even within hours now. There's some new satellite imagery that's been released by the US company Maxar overnight, and it shows Russian artillery and armoured vehicle positions in and around some of the key towns in the Luhansk region. So what would happen if they do capture the entire Luhansk? Well, they will have got a big swathe of the eastern Donbass, which will be something of a small victory for the Kremlin, for Vladimir Putin. And we'll see what he would then decide to do next. Does he use it as a platform, perhaps, for some sort of negotiations? Do they take a strategic pause before moving on? And if they do, I think what we would see is they would move south and west through places like Mykolaiv in the hope that they would then continue progression onto the port of Odessa in order to capture the entire Ukrainian seaboard. So it is the worst fighting is in the east at the moment, and it is where Russia is seeing some progress, and the Ukrainians are up against it. They are putting up resistance, but as you said in the introduction to me, they are calling for much more help from NATO and the Americans in particular in order to try and stall that advance.
Alistair, for now, thank you. Let's quickly run you through the front pages of the papers, starting with the FT. It pictures floral tributes for the 19 children killed in a school shooting in Texas. Police there facing growing anger over their response to the attack. The Telegraph, it says a Conservative MP's son is fighting with Ukrainian soldiers and helped save a fellow Briton maimed by a landmine. The Guardian goes with the PM's changes to the ministerial code, which mean that ministers won't need to immediately resign if caught breaking the rules, triggering accusations. The changes were made to protect his job ahead of a new inquiry into Partygate. The Mirror has word of the Queen's Platinum Jubilee plans, set to include Prince Charles, Prince William and Prince George, the paper calling them heirs to the future. The Express says that families setting off for half-term holidays faced chaos at airports and are set for worse this summer due to staff shortages. And here's the Star with the same story. Let's return to our top story and the admission from police in Texas that they made a mistake by not storming the classroom where a gunman killed 19 children and 2 of their teachers. There is still a clamour for answers about the police response after they provided a full timeline of what happened at Robb Elementary School. We now have a much clearer picture of exactly what happened and when. Ramos began his rampage by shooting his 66-year-old grandmother on Diaz Street. At 11:15 a.m, he sends the last of 3 private social media messages saying, "I'm a go shoot up a elementary school right now." We know that at 11:27, an exterior door to the school was propped open by a teacher. 1 minute later, Ramos crashed his truck into a ditch near Robb Elementary School before getting out of the passenger side with a rifle and ammunition and moving towards the school's parking lot. At 11:31, he reaches the last row of cars in the parking lot and begins shooting at classrooms. After firing multiple shots at the school from the car park, at 11:33, Ramos enters the school through the now open door. He walks down the hallway, turns right, and begins shooting into classrooms 111 and 112. 2 minutes later, 3 police officers enter the school through the same door, followed by another 4. 2 suffer minor gunshot wounds. By 11:54, parents have started gathering outside the school. A video captures them confronting the police and urging them to go in. By midday, children could be seen fleeing the school, with law enforcement still working out how to evacuate those inside. At 12:03, more officers arrive and go into the hallway. There's as many as 19 in there now. More shots are heard at 12:21, but it's not until half an hour later, at 12:50, that officers unlock the door to the classroom and kill the gunman. And much more response to that admission from the police here on Sky all throughout the day. Now, back in 2001, the businessman Rick Lewis founded the Black Heart Foundation with the aim of helping young people from underrepresented communities fulfil their potential in education. Fast forward to 2013, and the foundation launched the Black Heart Scholarship Programme, providing those in need with funding to access higher education. And now they're celebrating their 500th scholar, adding 400 of them, in fact, in less than 18 months. Fine work. Joining us now, the chairman and, of course, founder of the Black Heart Foundation, Rick Lewis, and one of their scholars, Sian Sontan. Guys, lovely to see both of you. Rick, I have to start with you. When you set up the Black Heart Foundation in 2001, did you think, A, that it would still be going so much later, but that you would now have, 500 scholars under the Black Heart Foundation's name? It's brilliant.
Well, we're actually pleased and a little bit overwhelmed by it. But yes, we set it up with endurance in mind so that it would go on for a long time. But when we started, truly, in 2013, we thought we would endow 3 scholars per year. The market and community response to what we're doing, including my board's response, and the huge need that's come from sort of all of the events of the last few years, the past of the global financial crisis, what's happened in COVID and the coronavirus, and how it's just plagued families and their ability to have the funds to help their children and families pursue higher education. Our work has become more important. So we've pushed on, and now we're at 500 and going to go beyond that.
So Rick, explain exactly how these scholarships are awarded, the process that people like Sian have to go through to be able to qualify, and what do they get as a result?
Well, I'll let Sian tell you how simple it is, but really you send us a 3 or 4 page application, which tells us what you've been doing, what your aspiration for a program or what you want to do with your time, and then a little bit about your financial sort of history, sort of what's the cost of the program, what funds, resources do you have, and what's the gap? And effectively what we do is we gap fund the difference for that bursary, scholarship, or program that you're pursuing sort of on the pathway to bigger and better. It happens very rapidly. There's 2 intakes. One in the autumn that's already started now and runs through the October admissions, and then another one in the early winter for the January admissions. We get back to you very quickly, and we fund the whole gap between sort of what you can afford and what that program that you're pursuing is going to cost.
Rick, no one wants to listen to 2 grumpy old men at this time in the morning, so let's bring in Sian. And Sian, just tell us a little bit about your circumstances, your situation, and why this scholarship is going to mean so much to you.
Yeah, so good morning. I was brought up in a single-parent household with just my mum, my brothers around me, and going through the system, obviously, it was a bit difficult trying to be aspirational, knowing that there were a few barriers to what I wanted to do and where I wanted to go. So finding the Black Heart Foundation Scholarship was just amazing for me, just because I was able to apply, just like Rick said on the application. I was just honest. I told him what I wanted to do, what my aspirations were, why there were sort of financial situations holding me back, and sort of how it would help me. And they really did help me with the gap funding so that I could really just focus on what I'm doing now. So I'm currently studying my master's in respiratory medicine at the University of Birmingham. And without the scholarship, I genuinely don't know if I'd still be in the course.
It's fantastic. And how is that course going, and where do you see yourself ending up as a result of all this year?
The course is going well. 1 year master's, so I'm going to be done in September time. And honestly, I'm not entirely sure where I'm going to end up, but I know that regardless of where I end up, I'm really going to be pushing myself as hard as I can to be successful. Because one thing I've always said to myself and one thing my mum has always told me, and one thing I even said on the application myself, was, what's the point of gathering all this knowledge and wealth if you can't give back? And that's one thing I really aim to do myself, where I just want to give back to the community and give back to people who find themselves in a similar position to where I was.
Well done, mate. That's a fantastic achievement. Rick, I'm sure you're incredibly proud of Sharon and indeed all the other scholars. If people want to apply, how can they do so?
You can find all of our information on our website at www.blackheartfoundation.org. That's all the details for the scholarship program is under the Black Heart Scholars Program. It's really easy, and we get back to you pretty quickly.
With us once again to review the papers, the journalist and author Gemma Forty and the broadcaster Afua Hagen. And Gemma, we're going to start with you this time. Inside the Mirror, page 13, in fact, the mother of the school shooter pleading with the victims, to the families of his victims, to forgive him, which I have to say, even in God-fearing Texas, will be a stretch.
Completely insensitive. I could not believe it when I read this. Adriana Reyes, the mother of the shooter, who's currently keeping vigil by her mother's bedside, because he shot her in the face first, his own grandmother. The timing is preposterous. These parents who've just lost their innocent children will be reeling, grief-stricken, and quite frankly, where do they focus their anger on? You know, do they focus it on these senators who refuse to tighten up gun laws, let alone ban them outright? But now for her to be asking for forgiveness, it seems like a stretch. I'm old enough to remember when Stephen Lawrence's mother came out and forgave his killers. But some time had passed. She was a woman of faith. She had had time to process. It was her choice. And I think we all admired her greatly and were really blown away by her dignity. But I, for one, as a parent, also remember thinking, I don't think I could be that person. And if I had suffered this right now, and then this woman was asking me to spare even one iota of empathy for her son, I just can't even, I can't verbalize how angry I would feel. So I really think she should be keeping quiet.
Yeah, I suspect we might not be hearing from her again for some time. Page 13 of The Guardian, Afua. I don't know if you've been following the trial, the Amber Heard Johnny Depp trial. I found myself sitting watching it and glued to it for a while. And then I realised that I was treating as entertainment, you know, some pretty serious allegations of sexual and physical assault. The Guardian suggesting that gender relations may well be on trial as well.
And I think The Guardian could be right. I have been following the Amber Heard and Johnny Depp case, and the jury is out doing their deliberations. We had closing arguments yesterday. And you're right, this is a really serious case of intimate partner violence, of mutual violence between both parties. But what it seems here, when we're talking about gender relations, you know, in this case, it seems that in the court of public opinion, at least, and on social media, Johnny Depp has won and Amber Heard has lost. When we look at social media, for instance, like I talked about, on Twitter, the hashtags #MenToo and Johnny Depp have been trending, you know, on TikTok. At the beginning of this week, the hashtag I Stand With Amber Heard had 8.2 million views, but the hashtag Justice for Johnny Depp, had 15 billion views. And it seems here that there's so much more support out there for Johnny Depp than there is for Amber Heard. Now, there could be many reasons behind this. Because Johnny Depp was the one that brought the case, he got to go first. He got to give his evidence first. And after a few days of the trial, people kind of made up their own minds that he went first, he must be telling the truth. You know, there's also men's rights groups out there, anti-feminist groups online that are very well organized in their attacking of Amber Heard. And we've seen her being mocked in memes on Saturday Night Live, all across social media. You know, people are talking about her emotions, whether they're fake or not, you know, funny moments in court. But this is a really, really serious case, a really serious case of domestic violence here. And I think, yes, gender relations are on trial here, as well as, you know, the whole story between the two of them. We've heard so many details, some really grim and gory details of what's happened in their relationship. And, you know, who knows what the verdict will be. But I think it really will be a watershed moment. You know, Amber Heard had kind of portrayed herself as the leader of the Me Too movement, and Johnny Depp's lawyer, sort of shot that down and saying it was the Me Too movement without Me Too, saying that she wasn't a victim. We don't, only the two of them really know what happened between them, and it remains to be seen what the jury will say at the end of their deliberations.
Yeah, and it looks like we'll have to wait a few days for that at the very least. Gemma, let's go inside the Telegraph. Interesting story, this. The NHS is being overloaded by patients who fear that their rash is monkeypox. I've seen some pictures of the reaction to monkeypox, so these people's rashes must be pretty gory.
Absolutely. I looked at the first pictures of monkeypox and thought, no, thank you. That is not a good look. And I'm only making light because nobody has died of monkeypox yet. I think it's really important to stress that. It's a member of the same family of viruses as smallpox. So we have vaccines that are already equipped to deal with this. So there are some positives within this revolting new virus that is spreading about. I think there's 90 cases in the UK so far. But I think understandably, there's a lot of post-COVID hysteria, and people are wanting to get checked out, and that is their right to go and make sure that what they've got isn't this thing, but they are getting completely overloaded. I mean, this kind of conflates with another story in the Mail, actually, that there are so many people not being able to get a GP appointment at the moment that a lot of people are going private for the first time, and then at the root of all that, you're looking at burnout, you're looking at staff shortages. So for the NHS as well, this monkeypox timing is just absolutely abysmal.
Afa, I wonder if we can jump actually to your last story. It's the front of the Mirror, and it took me a while to get the pun in the headline. Heirs to the future, here's to the future. Yeah, I got it now. But this is all about the men in the royal family and what they'll be doing come the Jubilee.
Yes, so this is definitely about the Platinum Jubilee. It's about that balcony moment at 5 p.m. on Sunday after the Jubilee pageant that will be taking place. And, there's been lots of talk about who will be on the balcony and who won't. And it seems that the Queen is going to be on the balcony with Charles, with William and Prince George. She wants to have a shot of them all together. And this is to show the world what is to come in the royal family, that this is the future of the royal family, and these are the heirs to the future and the heirs to the throne, like you said. And lots be made about this particular balcony moment because Meghan and Harry won't be there. She said it's only for working royals, which I think is absolutely fair enough because it's the Queen's Platinum Jubilee. She should absolutely be able to decide, what happens on that day. But I think what the Queen is doing with this is really gearing us up for the future, what the future of the royal family will look like when, unfortunately, she is not around. And the future is these three men. It's Prince Charles, it's Prince William and Prince George. So that's sort of the pinnacle of the 4-day Jubilee weekend. And that's going to end with Ed Sheeran singing to the Queen in front of the balcony. So why not?